Hello and welcome to Couple of Expats, the channel where we talk about studying, working, and living in Finland. Today's topic is a special one because we have another guest for you. In today's video, we are talking about the differences between Finland and Japan. So if you've ever wondered how these two societies are different or even what makes them similar, keep watching. So hello Megumi and welcome to Couple of Expats. Thank you for joining us today. If you could tell our audience a little bit about yourself, where are you from, how long you've been in Finland, and what brought you to Finland.
Hi, my name is Megumi Hayashi. I'm Japanese, and I came to Finland almost 30 years ago, and exchange study brought me to Finland.
Wow, 30 years is a long time.
It is a long time.
So how have you seen Finland change in 30 years?
I think Finland has become quite international. The first years, there was a time that people can just spot me like in front of the library, and I had no idea. But these days, you see international faces on every corner of Turku, and that's quite nice.
Yeah, and I think that's quite a big change that has happened. And
yeah, it is.
Especially in the last few years, maybe last 5 years or so.
Yeah, exactly.
Really picked up. So today we're discussing what are the differences between Finland and Japan. And if you have a few points for us of what differences have you noticed between these two societies?
The first thing I would put on my list is that Japanese are more group conscious compared to Finns are quite individualist. I'm speaking of my experience. When I first came to Finland, I lived in student village, and I got an invitation to a small party in a shared kitchen. And I got an invitation, oma pullo mukaan. Right, I understood the word, but my understanding of oma pullo mukaan was quite different from what Finns have done. I happened to have a bottle of vodka, so I brought it to the party. My understanding of oma pullo mukaan is everybody puts the bottle on the table, we share everything. Maybe you put some coin on the table, somebody goes out and buy cokes and oranges and chips and things. And again, everything on the table, we share everything. That's how the student party in Japan would have happened. But when I arrived at the party in the kitchen, there was no paper cups. And that was a shared kitchen. I wasn't quite sure of whom to ask. I had a bottle of vodka in my hand, but I felt quite awkward getting to know people with a bottle of vodka in my hand. I left the bottle on the table. A Finnish student came to tell me that don't leave it on the table, somebody will take it. But still, my mindset was so that, what do you mean somebody will take it? I feel offended if nobody drinks from my bottle. So I left it on the table, and after half an hour, 1 hour, it gradually came clear to you that people have their supply of beer, mixed drinks and things in their bags. By that time, of course, my bottle was gone. But that was my first collision with the other Finnish culture.
Well, that's a memorable collision. So what's another difference that you've noticed between these two societies?
Hierarchy. The first, I have had a slight difficulties to understanding the very flat Finnish hierarchy, almost non-existent. Another anecdote, when I went to my first internship, my boss was Ilpo, 60-year-old about, I think. In Japan, you do not call a person the age of your father with the first name. No, you don't.
Yeah.
And that was quite an inner struggle, a big threshold for me to call him Ilpo. That was such a simple thing, but that was difficult.
I can't say for all Asian cultures, but also in India, you don't address everyone by your first name. And for example, I had this difficulty when I moved from US to India, and my parents sat me down like, oh, okay, so be sure to not call your teachers by their names in school. You're going to get in trouble. You can't do that here.
Yeah, I totally agree. That would be easier to go from high hierarchy culture to low hierarchy culture than trying to do it the other way around.
So for sure, the differences in hierarchy takes a little bit of time to get used to. But now that you're used to the low hierarchy in Finland, has that been convenient? Is that something that you have grown to like?
Yes, I very much like the low hierarchy. You are given more of space to do these things without being supervised all the time. And I don't think I can go back to that Japanese working culture with this structure of bosses and departments and so forth.
So we've talked about individualism. We've talked about the low hierarchy. What else have you observed?
The way of communicating, Finns say things very directly to the point, no small talks, very straightforward, but the Japanese are not. Even after you have talked to some person, you have to try to figure out that what did he mean or what did she mean. I think I'm losing a bit of the skills of this indirect communication, because my mother, when I get back to Japan, often comments that you shouldn't have said that.
Too direct.
Too direct.
Okay. Is that just something that's very deeply rooted in Japanese tradition?
I suppose so. That there is a concern for the face, that in this situation, nobody is supposed to lose their face, so there's some consideration for the other person. And there's also the question of the hierarchy, that the way of talking to somebody whose social hierarchy is a bit higher than you, and all these things that are behind.
So lots of things to keep in mind.
Yes.
Yeah. That's good, because we hope to visit Japan someday, and it's always nice to have some understanding of the local culture and what you should or should not do. And I think one thing that I've noticed is Japanese people are very polite. So it could also be something to do with the fact that they want to be polite.
Yeah. And always the consideration for the others.
Consideration for the others.
This may sound a bit strange to you, but what I feel is that Japan is not digital. Finland is many steps ahead to Japan when it comes to certain things. When I was in Nagasaki, I was surprised that residence registration has to be done by paper. And I had to sit in the city office for hours. And the same with the personal ID. I got one when I was in Nagasaki, but it's still not connected to, say, for the identification of the bank pages. Still do not have much idea how this can be used and how this has to be managed. Patient record can be in the old written paper files that cannot be transferred from one hospital to another. So, certain things. Japan is not digital.
Yeah. Well, then I think you might find it interesting when you see online that there are a lot of videos constantly circulating that says Japan is living in 2050. And
yes, in some respect, yes, I believe that there are some very, very advanced areas, but some things are not.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm very glad that at least Finland has the basics covered.
Yeah.
We don't have rocket ships, or we probably do, but we also have like a digital system for medical system and identification, and it's rather simple to go through any of these the official processes. And I think at least also as an Asian, I feel like some of the official processes can be so cumbersome and so difficult that I have developed a hatred to have to do any official documents.
Yeah, I understand.
But in Finland, it's not that bad. So going from Japan to Finland, I'm sure that was a big step from how the surroundings change. I know for me, like coming from India to Finland, a joke that my mom often makes is, where did all the people go?
The same with my mother. Yeah, that is true. That was a big change for me. The number of people, population. The same when my mother first came to Finland. We went to pick them up from the airport, and when we were on the way from the airport to Turku, she asked me, why are we driving this small road, not the major highway? And I told her that this is the highway, and she was expecting 4 lanes, 6 lanes, the big thing. But it does hit me when I go back to Japan. Just when you arrive at the airport and out of the airport, into the train station, the number of people. But certain things work in Japan with all these people, and that's something I do like about Japan.
Of course. And I mean, they have built a system that works even despite the population.
Yeah. Some places, of course, you do have to queue, but surprisingly smooth.
I think when it becomes that you've lived in Finland for a certain number of years, you no longer really think about the things that shock you here because you're so used to the system. Rather, it becomes reverse culture shocks when you go back home. So I had to prepare Chris for our trip to India, like, okay, there's gonna be a lot of people and there's gonna be this and that. And also, like, I was preparing him, but I also needed to prepare myself.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. But the getting used to the people flow again and the congestion is something that it always hits me.
I'm sure when you spend like a few days, then it also comes back to you.
Yeah,
like, I was used to this, but it takes a while.
It does,
because we're so used to how things are here.
But it's beautiful that you only have to commute for like 15 minutes to get to your work.
Yes. And to think about how much time we're able to save every single day, because commuting isn't something that you have to worry about then.
Yeah.
So now we've talked about the differences between Japan and Finland, and I would like to know have you noticed any similarity between the two?
This is a question I'm asked quite often, and my favorite answer is tolerance for silence. The Finns can sit with somebody for ages without saying anything, and the Japanese too. The silence is not always an uncomfortable thing. And I think that's something that Finns and Japanese share.
Okay, so it's good to know that not everything was different when you moved from Japan to Finland, but rather you've also found some similarity between the two as well. So do you think if Japan and Finland had a how long can you stay silent competition? How do you think would win?
I can try with my colleagues.
Yeah.
But I don't know, maybe this similarity comes from the closeness to nature. Finns like to go out into the forest, and lots of Japanese do the same, mountain climbing and going to the national parks, right? National parks and these things, and that can be somewhat of the background.
Yeah. Could it also be that in both cultures it's encouraged to be able to spend time alone? So you don't need to be surrounded by people, you don't need to constantly socialize, but you can find peace and contentness doing your own thing, being in nature. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your unique perspective. I think that a lot of us have found a second home in Finland. Just in this room, we have Latvia, India, and Japan. And of course, we have Finland. And it's always beautiful to hear stories about vodka bottles, as well as the real differences in technology from someone who has actually gone through those experiences. So I hope our audience has found something insightful from your story. And thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for inviting me.
And there you have it. Differences between Japan and Finland. It's always so fun to hear about the cultural differences if a person just landed in Finland or if it's been 30 years. And in Megumi's case, even though it's been 30 years, she recounted those stories from back in the day as if it was yesterday. We hope you've enjoyed this video, and we want to know, what cultural differences did you notice when you first arrived in Finland? If you've enjoyed the video, please remember to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel about life in Finland. That's all for today, and see you next time.